It started on a Friday evening when I decided to explore an abandoned railway tunnel outside my town. I had driven past it dozens of times, watching the dark archway swallow the fading light of the sunset. I was curious, the kind of curiosity that drives ordinary people into trouble without realizing it. I parked my car on the cracked asphalt and approached the entrance. The air smelled of damp earth and rust, a mix that made my skin crawl even before I stepped inside. The tunnel was wide enough for two people to walk side by side, and the walls were lined with crumbling bricks, some of them loose and hanging by decades of dust. My flashlight barely cut through the darkness, its beam trembling as I moved forward. The first thing I noticed was the sound, or rather, the lack of it. The silence was complete, oppressive. I expected dripping water or the echo of my own footsteps, but the tunnel seemed to swallow every sound I made. As I walked, I felt a chill, not just from the cold, but from something deeper, an unease that made my muscles tense. That was when I heard it, faint at first, a whistling sound, soft, high-pitched, and impossibly precise. It seemed to come from far ahead, yet as I advanced, it moved too, always staying just out of reach. I tried to convince myself it was the wind, the whistle of air through cracks in the brick, but it had a pattern, a rhythm that felt deliberate. I called out, asking if anyone was there, but my voice was absorbed by the tunnel. The whistle answered in kind, rising in volume for a moment, then dropping again, almost like a mockery. My heart began to race. I turned around, expecting to see someone standing there, but there was nothing, only the black void of the tunnel and my flashlight beam trembling against the bricks. Despite my fear, I continued, driven by a mix of fascination and an unreasoning compulsion. The further I walked, the more the air seemed to change. It became heavier, almost viscous, pressing against my chest and making each breath laborious. Shadows formed in corners where there should have been none. My flashlight flickered, and I felt the sudden panic of realizing I had no idea how far I had come or how far I had to go. The whistling remained ahead, constant yet unattainable, as if guiding me deeper into the tunnel's embrace. After what felt like an eternity of walking, the tunnel seemed to stretch farther than it should have. The light from my flashlight caught something on the walls. Strange scratches, deep and jagged, in patterns that did not resemble anything human. My stomach turned as I examined them. They were old, yes, but some marks appeared fresher, bleeding faintly into the brick. I considered turning back, but the whistle was louder now, almost welcoming me, coaxing me forward. I realized with a jolt that the sound seemed to shift depending on where I stood, circling me, sometimes behind, sometimes ahead, never consistent. Panic rose in my chest. I tried to recall the way back, but the tunnel had no distinguishing features, no reference points. Every step I took seemed to echo incorrectly, slower than my own movements. And then I heard a second sound, faint but unmistakable, breathing. Slow, deliberate, echoing off the tunnel walls. I froze. My own breathing sounded ragged in my ears, but this was different. It was deep and wet, like someone or something was waiting in the shadows. I pressed onward despite the dread. The scratches on the wall became more frequent, forming patterns that almost looked like faces twisted in silent screams. Every time I passed one, the whistling seemed to mock me, rising into an eerie crescendo. My flashlight flickered again, and for a moment, I swore I saw movement just beyond its reach. A figure, tall and thin, too dark to make out, standing motionless. I blinked and it was gone. I tried calling out again, my voice trembling, but only the whistle responded, sharper this time, slicing through the suffocating silence. My phone, which I'd been trying not to rely on, suddenly buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, but there was nothing but static. Then, a message appeared, typed out slowly on the screen. "Why are you here?" My hand shook so violently I dropped the phone. The screen went black. A new wave of panic overtook me. I wanted to turn back, but the tunnel no longer seemed familiar. I felt disoriented, trapped. The whistle became a shrill, mocking tune, circling around me like a predator testing its prey. The hours, or what I assumed were hours, blurred together. The tunnel seemed endless, and my sense of time had disintegrated. My flashlight was flickering more rapidly now, and each flicker revealed the walls covered in more scratches, more twisted faces, some appearing to watch me as I moved. My mind began to reel. I felt like I was being followed, yet when I spun around, nothing was there. The whistling had changed again, low and guttural, as if the sound itself had weight pressing against my eardrums. Then I realized the tunnel had changed. The walls, once solid brick, were now lined with a slick, dark substance that shimmered in the light. It clung to me, cold and sticky, and I recoiled. The whistle had stopped for a moment, leaving a silence that was somehow worse. My ears began to ring, and I stumbled forward, trying to ignore the creeping feeling that the tunnel was alive, breathing around me. And then I heard it, a whisper, a voice that seemed to come from the very walls. My name. It was soft at first, barely audible, but each repetition grew louder, demanding attention. I called back, asking who was there, but no words could reach the voice. I felt an invisible presence brushing past me, close enough that I could feel the cold of it, and the whistling began again, slower now, deliberate, almost melodic. It was no longer just a sound. It was a guide, pulling me deeper. Fear turned to desperation. I tried to run, but every step I took seemed to bring me no closer to an exit. The tunnel twisted impossibly, stretching farther than the eye could see, folding over itself in ways that defied logic. My heart pounded so hard I could feel in my throat. The whispering joined the whistling now, voices overlapping, indistinct but insistent, calling me forward, deeper, to a place I could not understand. The walls were closing in. My flashlight went out completely, leaving me in darkness so absolute it felt like the void itself. And then I understood. I was not alone. Something massive was moving with me, just beyond reach, keeping pace, breathing along with me, waiting for the moment when I could not resist the pull any longer. I do not know how long I wandered. Time had no meaning. I tried to scream, to call out, but my voice was swallowed by the tunnel, leaving only the whistle and the whispers circling me endlessly. I stumbled over uneven ground and felt the slick substance on the walls extend into the floor, clinging to my shoes, dragging me down. Panic consumed me, and yet there was a strange compulsion to keep moving forward. Then I saw it, or rather, felt it. The air ahead shimmered, as if the tunnel itself was bending, twisting toward some impossible exit. A dim light appeared in the distance, pale and flickering like a dying flame. The whistling became urgent, insistent, almost joyous, beckoning me. I ran toward it, tripping over debris, my hands scraping the slick walls. Faces in the scratches seemed to leer at me, their mouths opening in silent screams. The whispers were deafening now, each one distinct, each one calling my name. I reached the light, but it was no exit. It was a hollow, pitiful glow emanating from a figure at the center of the tunnel. I could not see its face, but I felt its awareness. It whistled now, low and resonant, the sound vibrating in my chest. I could not stop myself. I tried to turn back, but my legs refused. The figure extended a hand, impossibly long, pale, and thin. The shadows around it writhed like living things. And then I understood. The tunnel was a trap, a living labyrinth designed to feed on those who entered. The whistle was its lure, the scratches its warning, the faces the remains of those who had walked too far. It wanted me to see, to understand, and in that instant, I felt every horror of the place descend on me at once. I had become part of it, a part of the endless tunnel, and yet I was not yet claimed. The tension, the hunger, the anticipation, it was all directed at me. I cannot recall how I escaped. Somehow, I stumbled into another tunnel, one that seemed familiar, one that led to the surface. I emerged at sunrise, trembling and soaked in cold sweat. The town looked normal, indifferent to my terror, and yet I knew something had changed in me. I tried to tell people, but no one believed me. Friends laughed nervously, dismissing my story as hallucination or exhaustion. Yet the whistle never left me. At night, in the silence of my apartment, I hear it again, faint beckoning from a distance. I awake in terror, convinced I am back in that tunnel. I returned once, against every instinct. I drove back to the old railway tunnel, hoping to map it, to find some explanation. But the entrance was gone. Where the archway should have been, there was only the slope of earth and brambles, as if the tunnel had never existed. Yet the scratches remain in my memory, etched behind my eyes, and the faces, twisted and silent, haunt my dreams. Sometimes I see them in reflections or in the corner of my vision, but when I look directly, there's nothing. The worst part is the whistling. It has followed me, or perhaps it has always been inside me. In the quietest moments, I hear it rising, low at first, then curling into that impossible melody that drove me forward into darkness. It knows my name. It knows my fears. I cannot escape it. I have tried to move, to leave town, but even miles away, the sound returns at night. The more I resist it, the louder it becomes, until I feel my sanity fraying. Friends have noticed my behavior changing, my obsessive checking of doors, windows, even closets. They do not know what follows me, what waits for me to return. I fear that one day, the pull will be too strong. The whistle will guide me back, and I will find myself once again inside the endless tunnel. When that happens, I know I will see the figure again, tall and pale, waiting to complete its work. I do not know if anyone else can hear it, if anyone else can understand the pull, the lure of the whistling. But I know it is real, and I know that it never ends.